How to create a condition set in your onboarding process. Many times in your onboarding process, you might have content items that do not need to be presented to all stakeholders of your onboarding process. You can create a condition set to bypass those items based on a set of conditions. For example, you want to present the relocation repayment agreement only to those individuals who, based on their offer, are eligible for relocation. In this video, you will learn how to create a condition set and how to use conditions to bypass steps in your process. So here I have my draft process, and we're going to create a condition set. So we're going to create a condition set that says if relocation is available on the offer, we're going to display the relocation repayment agreement. Otherwise, we're going to bypass the repayment agreement. Whenever you're creating a condition set, you will have three routers: an ending router, a bypass router, and a start router. Whenever I'm configuring these condition sets, I like to start backwards forward so that whenever you're ready to do the transition, the steps that you need to transition to are available in the process. Otherwise, you have a lot of back and forth because you need to create the next step in your transition before you can actually create the transition. So we're going to start with our ending router. So I'm going to create a step. I'm going to create a routing step. I'm going to name it. And you want to make sure the names of your routers are clear enough so that someone looking at the process knows the subject of that condition set. So I'm going to call it E for end, and I'm going to call it reload, which tells my user this is the end of the relocation condition set. For my execute step, because this is the ending router, I'm going to set my execute step to say when one and only one of the previous steps has been completed. What this tells the system is that there are going to be previous steps to this routing step. I only need one of those to trigger before the process can move forward. So either the person is going to get the relocation repayment agreement, or they're going to bypass it because they weren't eligible for relocation. I'm going to select finish, and I'm going to transition this router to where I want the process to go once this relocation repayment agreement is completed. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my step for my relocation repayment agreement, and I'm also going to create that second routing step for my bypass. So I'm going to create a step. I'm going to create a task because I want for people who are eligible to complete the relocation repayment agreement. So I'm going to search for that task. Continue. I'm going to give the individual 3 days. I'm going to give it a sequence of 100. Remember that sequence steps are only applicable to those steps that are presented to a new hire, so you can order the view in which they will see those steps on their career section. Assign it to the new hire. I don't have to worry about the execute step here, and I'm going to select finish. I'm going to now transition this to my ending router that I just created. That's why you want to go backwards to forwards. If I would be going forward, then that means I would have had to come out of this transition, go create the end router, then go back and find my relocation repayment agreement, and then complete that transition. I'm going to transition that to eReload. Next up, I'm going to create my second router, which is my bypass router. So I'm going to create a routing step. I'm going to call it bypass reload. Again, you want to make sure that your routers have meaningful names so that your users or people who are troubleshooting, administrators know, or even you yourself know what this condition step pertains to. Again, I don't have to worry about my execute step here. I'm going to finish. I'm going to also transition this to my ending step. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to create my starting router. So I'm going to create another step, I'm going to create a routing step. I'm going to call this S dot for start reload. Then I'm going to transition. This time I'm going to transition to 2 steps. So I'm going to create my first transition, and I'm going to transition to my relocation repayment agreement. I'm going to say when all of the conditions are valid, and I'm going to create my condition. So I'm just going to call it relocation equals yes. We know that our relocation is part of our offer field. I'm going to say relocation, and I'm going to say is greater than 0. So what I've told the system is if there's a number in the relocation amount that's greater than 0, then they should be presented with the relocation repayment agreement. Okay? Then I'm going to go back in my breadcrumb trail, back to my starting router, and I'm going to create my next transition, which is to my bypass. This is saying for individuals who aren't eligible for reload, I'm going to bypass that relocation repayment agreement for this group of individuals. And we're going to have, we're going to say at least one of the conditions, because I'm going to create 2 conditions. I'm either going to say when that relocation amount is less than or equal to 0, or when that field is null. Okay? So I'm going to call this relocation is null. Again, it's an offer field. I'm going to go to my relocation amount. I'm going to say is null. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to my transition in my breadcrumb trail, and I'm going to create my second condition to say when reload is less than or equal to 0. Look for my relocation amount field. And I'm going to pick my operator is less than or equal to 0. Okay? So the system is going to look at either of those conditions. If reload is less than or equal to 0, or if the relocation amount is null, then we're going to bypass that relocation repayment agreement. The last step is to then join the condition set into my process. So I already mapped out that I want this condition set to come after the welcome email. So I'm just going to create a transition to my start reload router. And now let's preview our process. So here you can see after the welcome email, I have my start router. You can tell that it's a router because it's tinted a little green. So I have my start reload. I have 2 transitions. You can see because our lines are bolded that there are conditions tied to those transitions. So we're either going to present the relocation agreement or we're going to bypass it. Then you can see here we have our ending router. You can notice that the ending router, there are 2 steps feeding into it, but there's a straight line on the left. That indicates to me that the system is only waiting for one of the previous steps. So either the person is going to be presented the relocation repayment agreement, they're going to submit it, and then the process will move forward, or the system is going to bypass that relocation repayment agreement. It's going to hit the ending router and then move forward. Okay. Thank you.